This is the first episode of Aaron Ask America, and today my first guest I've been waiting for since the concept of this is my lovely bride. Her name is Christy. We've been married for 20 years, and she has been very open to me starting this. So I said, I don't want to stream or record anything without having her be my first guest. So without further ado, my wife, Christy.
Hello.
So Christy, you being the first guest, let me tell you going forward, as I move forward with this particular product, if I'm able to, I would like for you to be guest 100. So you be the first, the 100th, the 200th, 300th, stuff like that. So that's my goal. Same thing with Fred. Hopefully Fred will be number 2, and then have him be like 99 or 101 going forward, just because I think the things that make shows like this successful is having important people in your life be in the show. So tell everybody, because most of the people that are going to be watching this or listening to this are people in our lives, but introduce yourself. Tell these crazy people on the internet who you are.
I'm Christy. I've been married to Aaron for 20 years. We've got 3 kids. I work in mortgage. I've been doing that for 20 plus years. I don't love it, but I also don't hate it. I lead worship, which I do love. And I sing, I play the keyboard. Yeah.
So now that 20 years have passed as of April 30th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've been married 20 years. So reflection on that, what is, I personally know what you think about our 20 years. At least I think I know what what you think of our 20 years. But to the people that are out there, 20 years is a huge number these days when it comes to marriage and people staying together, especially in the church. So what are your thoughts on when we joke to each other and say we've been married for 20 years? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think we've made it 20 years because for the most part, we've always put God first, and we've also always respected each other, and big decisions we never made alone. We always included the other person, from things as little as spending money to career changes, things with the kids. But ultimately, I just think it's about respecting your partner. And for us, I feel like when all of our kids move out, I'm not worried about whether or not I'll still like you because we have fun together when we're not around them, and when we are, obviously. But I don't think that when our kids leave the nest that we'll look at each other and be like, oh crap, I don't think I like this person.
Yeah, now what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, I think we'll be like, okay, we'll just keep doing what we're doing, minus a couple of extra people.
Our food bill will go down with each person that leaves.
Yes, but we'll just keep having fun and trekking along.
Yeah. So one of the very first things that happened when we got married, right, was, well, not happened because you knew before we did get married, but being, because we have the church has a whole host of people in various different positions in life. But when we first got married, I had he was 4 when we got married, but when we started dating, he was 3. I had Brett. So going from single, being able to do whatever you want to do, to now being married with a kid immediately, right? Can you remember how that felt back then? How that all played out?
I think that anyone, while I do consider Brett mine, in the true term, I am a step parent, and it's always hard to find your place. Even though you let me, help make decisions, but it was kind of hard to like find my spot and find my rhythm and find where I fit in compared to his biological mom. And obviously, your mom and dad had helped you raise him before I came along. So it was just kind of hard at first, to figure out where I fit in.
Yeah.
And I think it was even hard for you to adjust as far as like separating from your parents more and making decisions with me.
Yeah. I think that, I think the harder of the two, I think, was my parents, because Jackie made it abundantly clear she didn't want to be mom. So she wasn't really there at the beginning, or technically at all. So it was one of those things where, since my parents were there from the beginning, that if I remember correctly, I would go to them
Instead of me.
instead of you, which created a rift very early. But,
Yeah.
young, that's all I knew, all that sort of stuff. So I do know that it was rough from you from that point. But I know that you stepped in, of course, right? Because he calls you mom. You are going to go out tonight for dinner and all that. So yeah, there was definitely that point that I realized, that you can look back and be like, oh yeah, this was a huge mistake, right? So,
Well, and even after we married for a while, when Brett's grandma, Jackie's mom, passed away, even when they came over to tell him, I was like, well, I'll stay in the other room. Because even situations like that, and we'd been together for a while
yeah.
at that point, and I was like, well, I guess I won't be in here. Like, even then,
Because
it
he
was
was what?
kind of hard to know what to
He was a senior
do.
in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those that don't know, like I had a son with a girlfriend from high school whenever I was 20 years old. She basically abandoned him to me. So I became full-time dad with basically 6 months into his life. And then when he was, maybe 2, I put him in Bethesda. You were his teacher. And then, maybe we can go through that portion at some point. But at that point, so like my parents have been helping me raise him. His biological mother wasn't in the picture basically at all. She was kind of there helping here and there.
She was in and out.
Yeah, in and out. But the big woman on the other side of the family was Penny. And she, for all her faults, that we can't say she didn't love him.
Oh, she absolutely
Because she would
loved
come
him.
here just to walk around the block with him, right? She would drive across town just to come over here
Yep.
and
Spend
hang
time
out with
with
them. Yeah. So, but just because she passed away, I think his senior year, if not junior year
Yeah.
of high school. I want to say it was senior.
Possibly junior year.
Yeah, because that was a tough ride home.
Yeah.
Because she had passed away. Jackie called me because I think she died on Jackie's birthday.
Yeah.
She died on, or the either
Sometime around. I don't remember.
it was somewhere around in there, I think, is when she died, and I had to pick him up. And on the ride home, he didn't know what was going on, and I had to wear my sunglasses because I knew what was about to happen to him. But yeah, I know that you were in the other room, but you could have been in there too, but that was their time, right? For that, the person that shouldn't have been in there for sure was the boyfriend. Was the boyfriend, Jackie's boyfriend, because she turned out boyfriend so quick. Like, I think she had broken up with the guy like a couple weeks later anyway. So he was there for this momentous occasion when he shouldn't have never been there to begin with, right? He should have. Even though you shouldn't have
He
exited,
should have sat with me.
Yeah.
Even
Though you shouldn't have exited the room, but like he should have exited the room and just hung out over here in the kitchen with you. But yeah, that was an interesting time to say the least.
I just always tried to respect her, and it was her mom. So
yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, like, I think he, even before she passed away, he told you several times that you were his mom and that he wished that you had been his biological mom, all that sort of stuff. Because, like, for me, like, my enduring memory of her, of course, is when, he would beg her to call, and she would never do that. And so it's a wild thing to think back that not only, but when I say that she's dead, right, when the way that she died was terrible, but like just thinking like she's dead, like even saying that, like my brain still is like, she is dead, and she's been dead for a while. And it's just weird to even think about it, just because she was a year younger than us. So and I couldn't even, it was what if Penny died his senior year, then she died the year after he graduated, because she was there for his graduation. because that's when she came up and pretended like she was Mom of the Year. That was the worst part about her, was anytime she would show up, she would try to take over any scenario like she was a Mom of the Year. It's like, no, you weren't here for that.
I didn't care. I just let her.
Yeah.
She didn't come around enough to make it an issue, really.
So
I always got along with her. She was a very charismatic, easy person to hang around with.
I think so. We tried with her. I don't think we ever hung out as a couple with her and Will. Mm-mm. We hung out with her and Damon. Uh-huh. We hung out with her and Owen. Mm-hmm. And then I think a few of her. We did hang out with her and Richard, didn't we? Possibly. I know that they didn't get married, but they dated for a while. Mm-hmm. So we did our best. We tried. Mm-hmm. We tried to make her be a better person, but it just didn't pan out that way. But to change the subject to something more about us, because this is about us. This is about our 20 years of marriage and the celebration of it, and have all the people celebrate with us. But so I know you probably don't have like an exact moment or memory of when we met for the first time, but like, do you remember? I know what this is. I know you're enduring memory, but like nobody knows you're enduring memory. But like, when did I hit your radar as a person on this planet?
No, my enduring memory of you was just you in a t-shirt and pajama pants, just walking in with Brett and just handing him over to me and then leaving the room. You didn't really talk to me at all. Really.
Yeah.
That was it.
Because back then, right, so I was working at Saxon Mortgage, right, so that doesn't exist anymore. Mm-mm. And you already know this, but I'm telling them, but like I would work 11 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. That was my shift. And so I've always, when I spend money, I always try to get the maximum amount of money that I can. So I would wake up, take him to you, mm-hmm. and then go back home and sleep until my shift, because I was 22 at the time, 23, so I was staying up late playing video games with my friends, because you get off at 8:30, you go pick up Brett from my parents, and then be home by like 9:30, 10 o'clock. He goes to bed, and then we're up playing video games till all hours of the night. And so like I would wake up, if I'm paying for it, you're going to go. Because I think my mom would pick him up from y'all. So mm-hmm. I would be at work and she would pick him up and all that. So, but yeah, that was the reason why that was going on, where I would just pick him up and drop him off. So with my shirt and my pajama pants, I wasn't looking for a wife. And then what were the people, you said the people were telling you at the daycare center that...
Yeah, you should date Brett's dad. And then I think your mom and Carla started talking about it at like a Thanksgiving thing, possibly, where your mom was like, "Are you single? I have 2 single sons," and just told me about y'all. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know what happened on your end, but...
Yeah, on my end, which you already know, of course, because we've talked about this before. My mom comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, do you know that Brett's teacher has the hots for you?"
Which is not true at all.
And I was like, "Who?" No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Because at the same time that this was going on, if you remember, Brett was coming home and saying that you and him went to Disneyland, that you and him went to the beach, and that you and him went to all this sort of stuff. And at the same time, to even put more context to it, like he was going to Jackie and saying that he was doing
all these things.
Yeah, going on all these trips. And I remember one time where she's like, "Who's Christy?" And I was like, "That's his daycare teacher." And she's like, why is she taking a bath with Brett? I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "She's not doing that." I was like, "I just drop him off." She's like, "Well, he's telling me that they're going to Disneyland, they're going to the beach, they're going all this sort of stuff." And I was like, "No, she's not doing that." So all this stuff was compounding at the same time. And then here's my mom saying, "Did you know that Brett's teacher has a hots for you?" And I was like, "Oh, really?" "Oh, really?"
And then you're like, "I don't even know what she looks like." I'll have to pay closer
I,
attention.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't remember if I did know what she looked like, but my radar was definitely on at that point. Where I was like, "Oh, well, she's got the
Let me
hots for
see
me.
what she looks
Let me
like.
see what's going on here."
Maybe I won't wear my pajama pants tomorrow.
Well, my major first to like, I think if I had somebody hypnotize me, they could probably pull some memories of you prior to this moment. But there is one specific moment that I remember of you was the night that they had some sort of singing thing, and you were wearing like the black jumpsuit. I don't know. I know it wasn't a jumpsuit, but it was a black attire, and you had this belt that was made out of rings that went around your waist, and that's when I was like, okay, right, and that was, I forget what it was. It was like the end of.
It's like probably an end of year program or like a Christmas program or something.
Yeah, and well, it had to be somewhere where Brett was about to jump off out of your class, because that's when I was like, "Hey, can I thank you by taking you out to dinner?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this whole 20-year
story began.
That's where the love story began. So, like, when I ask you out, and again, I know this was a long time ago, but like when I asked you out and you said yes, like you were living with Nicole at the time.
Yeah.
Like, did you go home and it was like, Nicole, he finally asked me out?
No. Well, because originally when you asked me, it was you and Brett were going to take me out.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was just going to be me and you. Because you lied to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's how all relationships start out, with the guy lying to the girl. Figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
So like you say yes, I show up, Brett's not there, and we're right around the corner from your apartment, and we go to a Chili's, which sadly is no longer a Chili's anymore. It's some sushi restaurant or something like that. But we go there, and like, again, we've been together for a long time. My memory's not the best, but you said that we sit at Chili's, and
You just talked about youth camp and youth camp pranks the whole entire time. Yeah.
And then you were like, "This is the guy for me."
I was like, no, he's a nerd.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like him. And then maybe I lived with Rachel and Nicole, because I remember you asked me out again, and I think we were going to go to 4-day weekend or something. I was like, I don't know if I like him. And Rachel's like, hey, it's free dinner and an activity. You should go. I was like, I guess you're right.
Wow, this is a brand new development. Out of 20 years, you never told me about
I did.
the
You
second
just don't
day.
remember.
I don't think I remember her saying just go just because it's free dinner and a
did.
show.
What a great friend.
That's rude.
She's responsible for this 20 years.
Yeah. Well, no, because I took you to the 1-2 punch. We went to the Italian Inn.
Oh, yeah.
And then 4-day weekend.
Which also no longer exists.
Yeah, the Italian Inn doesn't exist, and we went to 4-day weekend. That's when you were like, okay, there's more to it. There's
Maybe
more to this
guy
nerd.
has some money.
You're like, there's more to this nerd than meets the eye.
He can talk about more than youth camp pranks.
And then from there, like, I couldn't tell you did I ask you out before or after the car wreck?
It was after.
So it was after, because I don't remember you wearing a sling on our first date, but I remember at one point you had a hoodie where you had a sling on because you had cracked your
Clavicle.
your clavicle. So was that? My timeline's, of course, is messed up. So maybe I asked you after the wreck, but you said, or I don't know, because when I asked you, it was during some sort of program, end of the year program. But I also remember Brett being put back into your class and you having a sling on. So maybe, I don't know, but either way, there was some wreck involved where you had drove somebody to the airport, and on the way back, somebody ran a red light and hit you.
Yep.
So, but I do remember that. And, but I don't know. It had to have been, like you said, after that, because we went bowling and there wasn't anything that stopped us from doing the dating thing, and an infamous story. And I guess, should I tell the Return of the King story? No?
No,
No, probably not.
it's not a very nice story. Not about us, but about his opinions.
It wasn't
Are
about
not
my
very
opinions.
nice.
It was about a friend that had expectation. But yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a story there with Return of the King that was
You can ask about that later.
yeah.
In person.
If you're in the comment section, if there are people in the comment section, then you can ask about the Return of the King story, and maybe for episode 100 we'll go
Yeah.
back and tell we'll reveal what that is. But yeah, that's what I was wondering, because there's a person involved that's still around.
Yeah.
that may
And we'll still be around at episode 100 too.
that may remember right now. If they listen to it, they probably don't remember Return of the King and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But like, if the story is told, them like, oh yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we first started dating, was it one of our first dates was Return of the King, which is, when you look back on it, like Return of the King is like a 3.5 hour movie, and we sat there and watched it, and it is what it is when it comes to
I was
movies.
trying to impress you.
Yeah,
Watching all your nerdy movies.
you're still trying to impress me now
Mm-hmm.
with your 20 years of experience. So fast forward, we get to the point where we've dated for a year.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about getting married. I have purchased the ring, and you are awaiting the asking of it, because I can't remember if I disclosed to you that I purchased the ring, or you just kind of had.
I don't think so. We had just basically talked about getting married, so I knew it was coming. So it was kind
because
of planning already.
Yeah,
like
because
a
me
weirdo.
and your dad moved you into their apartment.
Yep.
And I remember talking to your dad, because your dad, for me, like all my memories of your dad, even was it earlier this week, has all been nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not I don't have anything negative to ever say about your dad. He's always been awesome. But I just remember being in the car with him, or his truck, his little white truck, and I was like, hey, he's like, yeah. And I was like, Christy is, we're moving her back in. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, we've been talking about getting married. And, I kind of figured that. And so I was like, I want to do the right thing. I was like, I want to make sure that you're okay with it. And he's like, sure. I don't know exactly what. The only thing I remember about that conversation is him being like, yeah, that's what I figured. But, he gave me he gave the blessing. I told him what the plan was as far as what I was going to do and how I was going to do it, and he seemed to be fine with it. But he's not going to dictate how I propose to you. But I don't remember when I had that conversation with him to when the event actually happened. But my side of the story is, it was at my parents' house, because I wanted it to be a surprise. You were on your way over. Brett, who was 4 at the time, because we got married in 25, so he was 4 at the time, and I was telling him, I was like, hey, like, Christy's coming over, and we're gonna ask her to marry us. So you've seen the pictures. So I had him practice it, and he had the ring in the little box, and he practiced all the time. He practiced however long it took for you to get to my parents' house, saying, will you marry us? Will you marry us? And like, I don't remember exactly how it all played out. I know that there's a picture of you in my dad's lazy boy chair where you were there, and he's in front of you, and I take the pictures of it. So I don't know if I just told you to go over there and sit down. And I know personally, I didn't get on one knee because I was taking the picture, but Brett got on. Just in case, for anybody that doesn't know, we have total of three. We have Brett, Dexter, and Elise, so I get the kids mixed up. So Brett gets on one knee and proposes to you and says, will you marry us? And you say,
I said, no. Of course not.
Why
would I do that?
You slap him.
You're too young for me.
So like, that's my sad story, is we were at my parents' house waiting for you to get there, and he practiced it. So like, I know you may not have an exact memory of that day because you weren't expecting it, but like the drive there, were you like, hey, this might be the day where...
I don't think so. I think I only thought that one time, and when what was it, around Valentine's Day? I don't know.
No, it wasn't around Valentine's Day.
No, because we were getting married in April, but I just remember I was so sad. And I think after that, I just didn't get my hopes up.
Yeah.
I was like, it'll just happen, whatever. Plus, I went to your parents' house all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't remember like knowing it was coming. I think I was truly surprised.
Yeah. So when you get there, do you have that memory, or do you still have that memory? You don't? Yeah.
Just from the pictures.
Yeah.
It's very sad, but
I wish I could
from the
I wish I
pictures.
could forget 90% of every single movie I've ever seen for all the memories that are gone. But
Yeah.
but he gets down on one knee, he asks you to marry us, you say yes, and then we start the process of planning it, and we accomplished the goal on April 30th of 25, or not 25.
We just got married this
we
year.
just got married of 2005. And one of the sweet stories from our wedding is we do the walk down, or you do the walk down. We go through the entire service. Brett holds it together. The pastor, Brother Bandy, pronounces us man and wife. We walk down the aisle. We get outside of the doors. Everybody's happy. Brett walks out the door and kind of just hits his knees and starts crying. And I'm just like, my first initial thought is he thinks he's going to lose me, right? Because, again, he has an idea of what a marriage is, or somewhat of what a marriage is or whatever at that time, because he's 5. And then he starts crying. And then, I take him in the pastor's office and I'm like, what's going on, buddy? And he was like, she was supposed to marry me, because he asked.
He loved me.
Yeah, he still does. He
Yeah.
still does. But he was so upset
Yeah.
that you married me and not him.
Yep.
So during the rehearsal, during all that time, it never clicked until
It never dawned on him.
until Brother Bandy.
He thought you were standing in his place.
But yeah, he was. And then once he did that, we hugged it out, and then we came back, and then
We left him to go on our honeymoon.
we left him go on our honeymoon, but yeah, that was a sweet story from
So cute.
from our wedding. Was he thought he was
And
going
he
to
held it together like a champ.
He did. At any point in time, he could have just.
I mean, he was only 4, so
he
turned
was 4.
5
Yeah,
after
he turned
the month
5,
after
yeah.
we got married. Yeah.
And yeah, he held it together, and through some of the pictures, like if we look at some of the pictures before the wedding, because I think we took
Some before, yeah.
some before, like he was just being Brett,
Normal.
doing his own thing, but it was that ceremony that put him over the top. Like, wait a minute, why is he marrying my wife? Why is he putting that ring on her finger? Right. So, but yeah, that was a nice little story that took place during a little drama that turned into a sweet story for us to tell about Brett. And then we hop in a car. We drive down to Houston because my grandma, we're going to Galveston for a cruise, but we stopped in Deer Park because my grandma couldn't make the drive. So we spent the day with her, and then we went to, St. Louis Resort for one night, and then we hit our honeymoon that neither
One of us remember.
There's
And it's not because of alcohol. We just don't remember it because it's so long ago.
Well, we have these flashes, right?
We know we crashed a scooter.
So
we know Aaron sang karaoke.
Yes.
And I didn't, which is weird.
I think you did. We just don't remember.
Maybe
it.
I did.
So to talk about the crashing, this is a praise God moment. Okay, we go to Cozumel, and then we get off the boat. We walk down that big pier, or whatever. Right across the street from the pier, you can rent these scooters. And I was like, wow, why don't we just rent a scooter and we can go down there and shop just like everybody else is doing? And then we get the scooter and we take off, and I don't know what I'm doing. And then I remember because I was in a turn lane and I was trying to turn, and I don't know because I don't really remember fully how it happened. But instead of turning into the lane, I hit the curb. It launches both of us into the median. Praise God that neither one of us got hurt, because we would have been in Mexico with what happened, because the boat would have left us.
Yeah.
The boat is not staying behind for us. So we hit the curb. We go into the median. I think I scraped my leg, and I think you scraped your foot.
Yeah.
And then the actual scooter itself, I forget how to say it, but the alignment was off. So I was fighting the scooter. We literally get on the scooter once we realized that both of us is okay. We immediately take it back. We were gone 10 minutes.
Yep.
take it back. They still charge us for the entire day, of course, because it's Mexico, and we
Jump in a taxi.
We jump in a taxi,
Which is scary, but not as
Yeah.
scary as being on a scooter.
Yeah, so that's one of the stories that came out that both of us remember because it was dramatic. So that's the one thing that I've been thinking about since we talked about it the other day, is like our cruise, I guess, was so relaxing that our brain just set aside the memories because the only
And we also didn't take a lot of pictures either, which is
Yeah.
very weird for me.
That was my fault. I do remember telling you that because we do have like 5 or 6 pictures.
Yeah, very few.
But I was like,
not
hey,
to spark memories.
yeah, but like I remember saying that we should keep this to ourselves, and you agreed because you were still in the agreement stage.
Yeah.
If I were to tell you to do that now, you would
Nope.
you would hit
We're
me with
taking
the,
pictures.
would hit
You
me
don't
with the
remember
phone.
anything.
Yeah. At the time, we were still remembering stuff, but yeah, that's a big regret, is not taking pictures, because seeing those pictures would have invoked probably the recall of the memories. So that's.
We don't know what we did on the boat. Like, we don't remember anything.
I know that we went to the dinner. I remember vaguely the people that sat at our table, because back then, when you went on a cruise, they had you sit with the same people every single time. It's not like it is now, like the cruise that we just went on last year. So we had to sit with the same people every time. So I remember the newlywed couple with us, and then there was another couple that was celebrating however many years that they were together. I remember running into them at Playa de Carmen on the beach. The massage that I got on the beach, which was really, really cool. I remember jumping into the ocean with my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because we couldn't call my parents, because I don't even know what we couldn't call our parents until I think we had to stop and get a charger for your phone, because I think it had died or something when we got back inland. But I remember the karaoke. Here's one thing: if you're doing karaoke and the Soggy Bottom voice from "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" comes up, do not sing that song. You would think it's like 2 minutes and change. No, it's like a 10-minute song. It was awful. That's why I don't do. I mean, I can't sing, but like that's why I don't do karaoke anymore, because like because if you remember, it was me and the 2 guys from our table.
Yeah.
And you and the other 2 brides were sitting at the table, and y'all were cheering us on, and then all of a sudden it just kept going on and on and on. I was like, how long
And then
is
I think
this
everyone
song?
was like, when is this song
I
going to
know,
end?
because it was funny at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because we were goofing around.
Then it kept going
And then
and going.
constant sorrow. Then the song became a constant sorrow. But yeah, those were basically the main memories we have, or at least I have, that we've spoken about, and you kind of share like of our honeymoon.
Yep.
And then along the way, we've gone to Vegas a few times. Hawaii. I do have memories of
Galveston. And obviously we've been to Houston a ton of times to visit your family.
Yeah.
And your grandma when she was still alive down there.
Yeah. But like through all that time, right? A lot of people don't believe us, but we know the truth. Like, to your full recollection, like, have we ever really had like a knockdown, drag out fight?
No, I think we've been really mad at each other, but both of us are pretty passive people. So I can like go to the room and cry and get over it. And then you, especially then, would probably play like World of Warcraft or like Grand Theft Auto and like kill some people in a video game to work out your frustrations. And we pretty much got over it. And I say that, but I also don't want people to think that we don't communicate, because we do talk through things that we need to. But for the most part, we're just very passive people.
Yeah.
So like as far as yelling, we're not yellers. I mean, I cry for every emotion. So, and you're just passive. So we just, I don't know. It's kind of like a perfect recipe as far as that. Because, I mean, neither one of us have any desire to have knockdown, drag out fights. We have disagreements, but nothing ever crazy.
Yeah. Like the only thing that could come to mind, and it wasn't really a knockdown drag out, was whenever I was playing too much World of Warcraft, right? Where you just came in there and was like, you love this game more than you love this family. And I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
And I uninstalled the game because
Yeah.
like there shouldn't be anything that I do that, usurps your authority as far as like your feelings or your thoughts on it, the way I feel about you. Right. So like, I remember being like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Uninstall. And I did. I uninstalled it for a while. And then
I was like, can you install that game again?
now we're spending too much time
I'm
together.
sick of you. Please start playing again.
But no, ever since then, like I have gone back to WoW a few times, but it's with the understanding of knowing that you play for 30 or so minutes and then bounce off. But WoW is not a game that is like that. So I haven't been a full player in
A long time.
a very long
At this
time.
point, yeah.
Yeah. I pick games that like where you can hop on there, play something real quick and then hop off if I need to. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, like, we know some people that have lost their marriages over things like video games and just not communicating and all kinds of stuff that has taken place. And
Yeah, I think we communicate when it counts.
yeah,
And when we need to. But there are some things that you get mad and then you just get over it
yeah.
and move forward. So
I think that's what we're good at is like, because I can't pinpoint an exact topic of where you got mad at me and you just went and cried it out and then it was over with, or me getting mad at you. I mean, there are some topics that I could think of that you could probably think of too, where it's like you get mad and then all of a sudden you're like, why am I mad? And then that's I think that's mainly the topics that we've kind of gotten mad at each other about, is like, it's something that where it's like you get mad and you're like, all right, why am I mad?
yeah,
We could be using this time to snuggle on the couch.
right.
Because that's one thing that I think that in our marriage, aside, number one being God, because there has never been a point that I could think of where we haven't been in church. So I think when we first got married, we had trouble finding a church.
Yeah, because
But-
we had very different backgrounds.
You grew up
More
more,
charismatic,
and I was
hardcore Baptist.
hardcore Baptist. And then now I think that we have, through our marriage, we're kind of like a mixture of both, right?
Yeah.
You've come to,
Yeah, I've come to look back on some of my past church experiences with a better theological,
Yeah.
biblical viewpoint of some of the things that were happening. And I think that you've maybe come to the side of being excited and charismatic about Jesus.
Yeah,
You know,
I
it's
used
kind of
to-
like the mixture of the word and the spirit. Like I grew up heavy spirit. The Bible,
Yeah.
sprinkle it here and there. And then you grew up hardcore word, but there's not a perfect church, but the perfect church has a good balance of both of those things.
Yeah, so-
and not just leaning heavy on either side.
yeah. So I don't know how well you remember it. You probably do, but I used to skip worship.
Yes, I do remember.
I used to show up late to church because all I cared about was the preaching.
Yep.
And then I could probably, it was a conversation that you and I had. I don't remember what stopped me from doing that, but that's kind of like that mixture of learning from each other. Like, okay, yes, the Holy Spirit works. We need to worship God
You're
because,
like, why does my wife always cry constantly during worship? Maybe I should check this out.
well, the thing is, it's like, okay, what are we going to be doing in heaven?
Yeah.
So we're going to be
Jesus.
worshiping, right?
You hate it now.
There's not going to be any I would assume that there's not going to be any preaching in heaven, because what are we preaching about? So all we have left is worship.
Worship, yeah.
So like, so there's the melding of growing up Baptist and then God moving us to Cross Point Church, which was charismatic, but also run by more of a Baptist guy, even though he's in the charismatic movement.
Yeah.
But it was more of like a nice mixture of Baptist, but also the crazier side. But most of the time you had like this central.
Well, but you also had the solid word,
Yeah.
even mixed in with some of the crazy.
Yeah, and I think that just God taking me and us through this journey where I see the absolute need for worship, and I, have began
You
liking.
used to hate Christian music, period.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say hate.
Well, you
I
would
just
not listen
wouldn't
to
listen
it.
to it,
Yeah,
and
because
then
there was nothing as good as all the secular
well,
bands.
I mean,
Yeah.
Dream Theater. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't get any better than Dream Theater.
Yeah.
But like like Jeremy Camp, I think was the first
One
guy
of the
to
first
yeah
people.
was the first people
I
to
think
break
Gilmore helped you a lot too.
Yeah.
He picked out a lot of really good songs
Yeah,
while
I
we
think-
led worship together.
I think his family's been a huge blessing to us as
Absolutely.
far as from a worship standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But like Jeremy Camp, and then was it Chris Tomlin?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Big Daddy Weave,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then those guys started the foundation, and then just listening.
You've slowly heard some awesome songs
Yeah,
over the years.
yeah. There's that too, because like yes, firm foundation. I don't know who sang that song.
And that I Know a Name.
I know a name, like all that sort of stuff. Yahweh, Yahweh.
Yep.
But like all that stuff is just the description of how wonderful and awesome, merciful, gloriful, all those adjectives that you can say about God, like all those things are true, and they're in the Bible, but they're also sung about. And then now with the Stephen McWhirter guy, who's totally taken me to a whole new level as far as like he's singing all the songs that Gilmore introduces to, but he has it in his own voice.
Yeah.
And
Our dog is being really loud.
she's so scratching around over there. So, but yeah. So I think just looking back on the 20 years of just having God in our lives, sure, could we do better? Of course, there's always
We've
room
gone
for
on
improvement.
quite the spiritual journey, though. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, we went.
We've both grown a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, I never thought I would be leading worship,
Yeah.
period, or a women's Bible study.
or having the stuff that you used to have here. Where,
Yeah.
Where you'd kick me and Dexter and Brett out, and you'd have the women over here, and doing all that.
Yep.
And even with me doing fire resistant, podcasts, that was never something on my radar at all. Even doing this, right? I know this isn't going to be primarily Christian based, but like even this right here would never be on my radar at all. And then doing the men's Bible study at the church, and then the men's group that he's put together recently outside of the realms of the church. It's definitely a wild ride that spiritually that we've been on, and we haven't even touched on the two kids that came about. Dexter came about 6 years into our marriage. So 4 years because
we
he's
got
16.
05 and he's 09.
Yeah, so he's, and then Elise came along 9 years later, 6 years, I don't know.
I don't know. 4 plus 10 years later.
10 years later, yeah, because
Well, she was born in 2015.
2015, yeah, we
Yeah.
spent our 10-year anniversary.
Let's have another
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, and even with that, right, I don't know how much you remember that because you were kind of drugged there, but I remember being at the first hospital for Dexter, and, you were in there for over 24 hours.
Yes.
And I remember taking casual pictures, and, that was Facebook when I was updating everybody. And then when Dexter needed to come out, and they made the decision that they were going to cut him out, I was like, I remember sitting down. They started to wheel you out, right? I sat down and I was, kind of like
See you later.
kind of crossing the legs thing, being like, okay, see you when you're done. Type deal. And the doctor, I don't remember his name. I remember the other doctor's name. The other doctor's name was
It
Alan.
was Dr. Allen.
And Alan was number 2.
No, he was the first one.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Sneed was.
Oh,
was
yeah.
Elise,
Okay, Alan was the first one. So I did at least remember one of them. But I remember him looking at me. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like,
I'm not watching surgery.
I'll see you when you get done. Make sure my wife stays alive, right? And he's like, no. He's like, you're coming in here. I'm like, do I? I said, there's a high probability that
You'll have 2 patients.
I will pass out. And he said, we'll take care of you. And then he makes me put on all the stuff, put on the thing. And then when we walk in, right, they're prepping you. And we walk in, he's like, bring a chair, Dad may pass out. And then, then they cut out Dexter, and again, they put up the thing like they did for Elise, and then they take Dexter over, and when they take Dexter over there, I got video of his first moments in life. They're on my computer backed up and all this sort of stuff. But like the first thing he does is pee on the nurse. I remember that much. It was funny. And then he was doing the crying thing like babies do, right? But then, they got the thing on him, And at that moment, I think they let me bring him over to you. And then that's when I think we have the picture of us.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think we know that. I think I'm mixing it up with Elise because he had the holes in his heart.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
was curious if you remember all that because I was so drugged. I just remember the first time I saw him. He
Yeah,
was
I think-
already hooked up to all the
yeah, so
heart monitors and oxygen and everything. I don't know when they told you about all that because I don't have any recollection
took-
other than seeing him for the first time
now that I think
after I had him.
Yeah, now that I think about it, so what they did is they cut him out, and then instead of letting me take him over to you, they had to get us out of there. They took me to a completely different room. They finished up with you, and they put you in
Like recovery.
They
of
put you in
some sort.
recovery, and then I came back in there later on without him, and you were still there. And then I think after they got him connected to all those devices, that's when you got to see him for the first time, because it was a little bit before you got to see him because of the holes in his heart hadn't closed up like they're supposed to while they're in Euro or how you say that word. Euro. So, but yeah, then there was that. And then because that was your first C-section, right, we had to stay in there a week.
We were there, for a full week. Typically it's like 3 days, but we were there for a week.
We were there for a long time because people at the church, I remember, brought us all those huge snacks, and I can't remember if I was there the entire time or if I had to go back to work. I can't really remember. I just know that you were in there for at least a week. And then with Elise, I know that because you had Dexter that way, we were able to say, okay, here we go.
Yep.
Right. So we chose the date of April.
So it wouldn't be the same day as Dexter's birthday.
Because her due date was Dexter's birthday.
Yep.
So we chose to do it a week before. And so we had some sort of separation. And with that one, I knew that I had to be in there. But the funny story with that one, of course, is they're cutting you open. And
Talking about crawfish boils.
Yeah, the anesthesiologist.
So stupid.
The anesthesiologist is over there on my side. They have the thing up. Your face is right there. And I'm sitting there looking at you. I think I'm holding your hand. Maybe not. I don't know. But you're right there. I just see your face. And the anesthesiologist keeps
lowering
he keeps lowering the thing to
'cause
talk
he
to the
wants
doctor.
to see the doctor's
right?
face
She's
while he
trying to
talks
talk to
to
the
him.
doctor. And I said, do you want me to throw up on you?
Quit lowering that
I said,
curtain.
stop lowering that. I said, I will throw up on you. And then he was like, psh.
Yeah.
And then that one with Elise, she came out hungry.
Ugh.
So she would not stop
crying.
It
Oh
was
my
like
gosh.
it was like a death rattle.
It was like ear piercing.
Yeah, it was like our dog
Yeah.
when she gets hurt. It's ear piercing, soul piercing, and she just would not stop crying. I don't think she stopped crying until because they while they cleaned her up, they put you back together. And we stayed in that room the entire time until they got done with you before we left, and she cried.
They kept her and they had her laid next to me in my ear screaming the whole entire time. Yep.
And then I want to say that they used donated breast milk.
I think so. I think they finally asked me.
Yeah.
And that she was just starving.
Yep. She
was fine after
was fine. She just needed a belly
she
full.
was just hungry.
And then we were at that hospital, I want to say
2 or 3
yeah,
days.
2 or
It
3
was
days
pretty
of
quick.
that. Yeah. And then we were off to the races. Here we are. She's 10 years old now.
Yep.
It's just us doing our thing.
Yep.
And then we got Dexter, who's 16. He's being the producer over there. He's pressing all the buttons, making sure that this looks all professional, at least from a changing
Yeah.
angles perspective.
From a home studio.
Yep. And then Brett's about to get married next weekend. We should do a post. We should do a post podcast just to be like, now we have a daughter-in-law. But yeah, I just like my overall thoughts from my perspective as far as our marriage is concerned is I think that if anybody, because, you get people that, from Fire Resistant, when they hear that I've been married 20 years or even 19 years, they're like, well, what's the secret? I think, you always say number one is God, right? Because that establishes a rule set on how I'm supposed to act as a husband, even though I fell and I still fell now, and I'll probably still continue to fail at some point as far as like my duties as as a husband. But then it shows grace, and even when I fell, you do what you're supposed to do, because at the end of the day, like when we stand before God, you're not going to stand before God before me, and I'm not going to stand before God for you. So when I'm failing, I'll have to account for that. You stay true to who you're supposed to be, and then it'll bring me back up. And if I stay true to you when you start failing, then it brings you back up, and then there's like this harmony that that's there. So,
I would also say, if you don't respect someone while you're dating them, you're not going to magically respect them after you marry them.
Yeah.
And there has to be that level of respect, because you have to respect someone to be able to compromise and trust their decision making. And if you don't, I don't know. We know people who don't respect or get respect from their spouses, and I can't even imagine that and how miserable that is.
Yeah, I the respect is definitely number two. So you have God, and then we both agree at number two as far as respect, because just like you said, if there's not a respect there, then
you're not going to want to be led by the other person if you don't respect them.
Yeah. I think number two, of course, is communication. There are things that we can't talk about on this podcast. Keep wanting to say stream because of fire resistant, but on this podcast. But like we talked about, and it's important, because if you don't talk about every single topic, then you can't address issues that are going on. So like if you're in a marriage that you don't feel like is going in the right direction, then number one, are you going to church? Right? Because if you're not going to church, then you get involved in church. If you are going to church, well, are you respecting each other? If you're not, then figure out why you're not respecting each other, and then that leads into communication, because if you're not respecting each other, then you communicate to see where...
Well, and listening, and not just listening to respond, but truly listening.
Yeah, because, and I think also, I don't know if it falls at number 4 or number 5 or something like that, but also having... like your own lives.
Yeah, I think that is key, because we've also known people who were so consumed with their spouses that they couldn't do anything outside of each other.
Yeah.
And honestly, we haven't had a whole lot of couple friends. We mostly have our separate sets of friends, and obviously some of them intermingle, but for the most part, like you have to, I don't know, be able to stand alone as a person and not find your identity in your spouse, which obviously our identity should be in Christ anyway. But if you get that right, then your identity should not be in your spouse.
Yeah. Yeah. You still come together as one flesh, as a family unit. But then all right, if you want to go hang out with Sarah, then go do that. If I want to go hang out with Joseph, go do that.
And that all goes back to trust and respect as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a moment in our marriage where I was doing a contract work where I was in Buffalo for basically 3 months. Like I'd be gone for 2 weeks, come back for 24 hours, gone 2 weeks, come back for 24 hours, and there's not a lot. I mean, whatever, how you want to say it, but there's not a lot of people that can say that they fully trust their spouse, and there was never a point where I was gone for those 3 months where I was like, what is she doing? Is she running out on me or anything like that?
At home taking care of the kids.
And some
and
of
working.
some of that was we did Skype.
We did Skype calls.
I don't know if we did it every night, but we at least Skyped a lot where we were chatting. But yeah, there was never a moment where I was thinking, okay, as soon as she hangs up the Skype, she's going to open up the front door and Bob's coming in.
My boyfriend.
Bob's coming in, and or anything like that. So there's there's guys that die early because they don't trust their wives, and I never have, and I don't think I ever will have to worry about that, because.
You're enough for me.
we've talked about that. You're like, well, if you go first, and I'm gonna move in with Sarah, we'll be happy. And I was like, well, if you go first, then I'll probably just sit at home and gain 600 pounds or something like that.
You work from home, you could.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's like I say that, and we've talked about that too, where we know someone that just lost their wife at Trinity, and he just got remarried.
Yep.
And when I found that out, I was like, because my parents had mentioned it to me, I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And Dad told me when he called him up to basically congratulate him or something like that, he was like, I just couldn't live alone anymore.
Yeah.
And so
I am of the opinion that until you are in that situation, you have no idea what you'll do or how you'll feel.
Yeah. No,
and we've known several men, it seems like more so, that do get married super fast because they need that companionship or they just need to be taken care of.
Yeah. And I think with his situation, probably a little bit of both.
Yeah. And there's no shame in that. I really don't.
For the same thing, like with the first guy from Trinity, the singer guy, like when people are having a problem, like what business of it is yours, right?
Yeah.
He found someone. They're still married to this day.
They are.
But like with the newest guy that we know of that just remarried, it's like it's nobody's business. Mm-mm. Like they made a commitment before God. It's up to them to. It's no different than what you and I did 20 years ago.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure though I'm gonna just sit at that computer over there. If something happens to you,
I'll get remarried the day after.
Yeah, you probably. Yeah. Well, when you're a smoking hot woman, it's real. You can replace me tomorrow just like that. Just probably less poundage. You're probably, I'm probably gonna go for a quarter pounder instead of a full pounder this time. But you're stuck with me for a while. You wanna know why? Because the Bible says that if you respect your parents,
you'll have a long life.
You'll have a long life. So
you're gonna live forever.
so as you know, I have totally respected my parents. I still do. I still go out there. I try to be the best son, both for the reason biblical because I'm supposed to, but then
and because you actually love your parents.
Yeah, I do. I mean, my parents are cool people.
Yeah.
But like that's ultimately what it is. It's like they raised me. They did a good job. We didn't have a lot of money. And I know I joke and say that you're rich compared to us, but we weren't. So like we didn't have a lot of money.
I wasn't rich, but I was loved.
Yeah. So like for me, like same situation. We didn't have a lot of money, but we figured out a ways to have fun. And church, there's never a point in my childhood that I can ever remember not being in church in some form or fashion, all the way up until my parents were my youth directors, which was good and bad at the same time. So because there's a picture somewhere of all the girls in the youth group holding pictures of me, like all my baby pictures that my parents had, like, because my parents don't have a lot of pictures of me, that they were holding up every single one of the photos. I was so mad that at that photo I was really, really mad. I was steamed. And yeah, that's a story to tell on a different time in a different show, maybe with somebody else, because I think as we draw this to a close, right, because we need to leave them wanting more for the next one, my whole point in this, I'm telling you this even though you already know this, but I'm also telling them this, is like my goal with Aaron Ask America is I want to have every color, every creed, every sexual orientation. Like I want to have them on the show and just talk to them, because like America is like this melting pot of people with all these different backgrounds and all these different stories. And I'm a realtor here in DFW. I helped out a couple from the church, and if I remember correctly, they're from Nigeria.
Maybe.
Yeah. So let's say that he is. I would love to have him on the show to hear his story, how he got from Nigeria to here involved in our church and all that, right? Just hearing his story, hearing how he grew up in a different country to get here, or maybe he didn't grow up in another country, or not another country, but maybe he was born there, his parents moved here and he grew up here. I don't know his story, but just stories like that. That's my goal, is like not so much anything like fire resistant, but just interviewing people and just talking to them, because like a story that at some point I'll tell is we didn't have a lot of money, so we had to come up with our own games, right? So we had this game that me, my dad, and Jer played called Whoever Drops Five, right? Stupid game, but like we would play it for hours, and it's basically a football, and we just throw it to each other, and the first one to drop five was out. So like, there was only three of us, so it got a little, you throw it at their feet. You can't throw it at the feet. You had to bounce it. You got creative there, trying to make people drop the ball. So just things like that maybe somebody else out there has a similar game that they used to play, like whoever drops 5, or they use the ball instead of a football, or just something like that. Or when we lived in Mount Enterprise, there was like this huge giant mound of dirt that you played King of the Mountain, but it was like filled with rocks. So when you got thrown off of it, you were all beat up. So but yeah, just kind of stories like that. And I'm sure that y'all probably have stuff like that too in your family that was very exclusive to y'all, and maybe we can do that.
We lived with the roaches.
Yeah, you lived with roaches. You could tell them about the roaches story. There was, so real quick before we this is gross, but so He-Man, right? His cartoon series,
the Master of the Universe.
Masters of the Universe. He had this thing that one of the many vehicles, toys that he drove around with, and it had this rock. Right, it was a plastic rock, right, and you'd press a button, it would go, right. So you went to my grandma's house a couple of times, right? Mm-hmm. I think you went to her house post roaches. I don't know if you remember.
I don't remember them being roaches.
Okay, so she used to have a massive roach problem. So I'd be driving around just smashing roaches with this He-Man thing. So yeah,
that was a fun game too.
It was a fun game, but it was by myself with He-Man and some of the Masters of the Universe, killing roaches at my grandma's house, and just be like. But yeah, so that's my overall goal as we wrap up this first episode.
Hear people's stories.
Is here's people's stories. I told you episode 100, but maybe we'll get you back at 50.
To hear my actual story.
Hear your actual stories
before you.
Yeah. Ooh.
Who was I before you?
Ooh.
I don't know.
I do, because your parents take pictures of everything.
It's been completely documented. There are boxes of pictures.
Plus, at this point, is there any secrets that we have between each other?
I don't think so. I was pretty open with you from the very beginning to tell you stuff from my past.
I think
I don't remember how those things ever came up. I just know that you know.
Yeah. I think there's only one thing that I've never told you that could be left for episode 100, or when we turn off all the cameras and I tell you what it is, because it's not that big of a deal. But because when I think about it, it's not that big of a deal. But why would I have told you that? I don't know. It's not like a deep dark secret like
I told you.
turn off the lights. It's secret time with Aaron, because I don't think that there would have been ever a point where you said, "Hey Aaron, have you ever?" And then I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I did. So, but maybe that'll be the exclusive.
Well, I will not be telling secrets.
Why not? It's fun. There's nobody watching right now.
I'll be telling stories, but not deep, dark secrets. That is not what I'm about.
Tease them. Tease your next appearance. What is something that you could think of that you and your friends did where you don't tell the exact story, but you say, okay, one time my friends and I were walking down the path, and then...
I don't know about friends, but I do know I was driving around one time with my cousin, and her car blew up antifreeze, so she burned her hand and she couldn't drive, so I had to drive, and I ran into a car and we just drove away.
Allegedly took place. I haven't even heard that story.
We haven't gone into all the shenanigans that Summer and I did, but yeah, we did some. There's a lot of things that I'm really lucky that I'm alive.
Yeah.
Today.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know who you are anymore. You hit somebody and then left them.
It was night. It was barely a tap.
There's a movie out there called I Know What You Did Last Summer. I think that was probably a documentary about you.
People weren't murdered. It wasn't that kind of night. I don't have those kinds of secrets.
Well, then, you just told the entire story. So.
Well, yeah, that wasn't a teaser, but there are many, many more.
There are many more stories of Christy hitting other cars with a car.
Yes.
And then leaving it.
Ran over many a curb.
Many curbs around the Texas
I was in
landscape.
Lake Worth when that happened. Mm-hmm. Yep.
What if that person's still looking for you now?
Then we just told on me.
This thing happened 25 years ago.
Like, why did Christy get arrested?
That'd be amazing. We sit down at church and all of a sudden the cops bust in and where's Christy at? And then there it is. All right. Well, with that said, Kissy Renee, my Khaleesi, my queen, the love of my life of 20 years. I can't say it enough of how much I love you and how much I appreciate everything you do in this house for the ministry that you believe in of Jesus Christ and all that. So I would thank you for being on the show, being guest number one. And even it may have been against your will. I'm not real sure on that. But before, one of the things I thought about doing is letting the show end with like something you want to say to like encouraging to the audience, like, you know, like we've been talking about marriage for the most part, like our marriage for this whole entire time, just to say, you know, if you want to say something, if you don't want to, we can still cut off. But you know, like I mentioned, like with each and every person I talk to, like with different backgrounds, like, hey, here's something, here's a moment for you to kind of say something encouraging, like if somebody's struggling or if a marriage is struggling, or if you want to give some worship advice, or just anything that you want to that comes to your mind, or if you just want to say goodnight, everybody. Peace out. Maybe we'll do this next time. But yeah, that's kind of my I would like to give the floor to the guest just to say, here's some encouragement, or if you just want to.
I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head other than as far as serving in the church. Well, for one, serve. Like, don't just sit on a pew, because I really can't think. There have only been short periods of time in our marriage that we both weren't involved in some way in the church. And I think when you're serving other people, the focus of all your issues kind of goes away and can sometimes even resolve itself because you're too busy pouring out to focus on, you know, all of your stuff. So that's all I got.
Awesome. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This has been the first episode of Aaron Ask America, and we will talk to you soon.
God bless you for watching.